Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about The Legend of Aang, the 2026 animated movie. Finally, and I mean finally, this movie has come out, and it is glorious and everything. This movie was so good. This movie was so breathtaking. The animation was amazing. The voice acting was half and half. But overall, pretty good in my opinion. There's just really one person's acting I really wasn't feeling. But other than that, it was awesome and stuff. Now, I now see why Ellison did not want this in theaters and why he wanted this on Paramount Plus. Because of the simple fact, this movie would have brought butts into the theater seats and everything. So he decided business-wise, okay, yeah, I can make a bunch of money in the theaters, but I can get a lot of people to subscribe to Paramount Plus because we're bleeding money over here and everything. We're in debt. So business-wise, I totally understand why he did what he did and everything. Because the movie is that good, it would have brought butts into the seats in the movie theaters. So instead, he wanted it, to come out on Paramount Plus, get that subscription, get that money, and try to get out of debt and everything. Now, is this the greatest movie of all time? No. Is this movie perfect? No. There are flaws and nitpicks in the movie. Is this greater than the original series? Heck no. But in my opinion, it is still a masterful presentation and everything. The thing with the original series is, of course, they had multiple episodes to tell multiple story arcs. However, even in this time span of about 2 hours and everything, about an hour and a half to close to 2, something like that, they still could have went more in depth than what they did. The thing is, the creators and the screenwriters and everything, they played it a little too safe. They was thinking in terms of television. Hey, what if we don't get picked up for another season? Maybe we should wrap everything up in this one season. And that's how they thought when it came to this movie and stuff. They wrote it like they might not get a sequel and everything. And so they crammed a bunch of stuff in, way too much stuff in my opinion, to the point that where there's too much stuff going on in this movie, to where they tried their best to wrap everything up in terms of hey, what has the old gang been up to? And let's tie this into their adult lives and the Legend of Korra and some of the events that happen in the Legend of Korra. And so because of that, there's way too much going on in this movie, and then some things are very, very rushed, especially when you get towards the end. And this really should have been a trilogy. It really should have left off on a huge cliffhanger and then, proceed with the sequels. But the thing is, they played it safe because in terms of animation television series turning into movies, they typically don't do very well. They typically flop and everything. No matter how oppressive the television series is, their animated movies tend to not be that great. Whether it's DuckTales, Goof Troop, Sailor Moon, Digimon, even Batman the Animated Series. They get their theatrical releases and something just happens and it just doesn't connect with a lot of people, especially that of the critics, which is why A lot of those animated shows later went to direct the DVD, and they did a heck of a lot better and stuff. And so I get why they didn't want to like risk, not getting picked up for like a sequel and this and that. And then like, things just never getting resolved. Even though things are a bit rushed towards the end, even though they did try to incorporate Legend of the Korra into into this movie, it still turned out pretty good. The only problem I have in terms of doing that is just it's crammed. You know what I'm saying? And there are slight continuity problems and stuff, just a hair and everything. The Legend of Korra was very specific on certain things. Now, certain things seem to happen a bit differently now. And I hate when they do this because even in The Legend of Korra, they have broke canon slightly, just slightly, and especially in the comic books when it comes to that of like the other avatars. Because in the original series, we saw the lineup of like the Avatar line. Then when you get into the Korra series, the lines seem to have changed. The creators are all like, this is just something we was creating years ago. We didn't know it was going to stick. We decided it's best to tell like our story the way we want to now. And so we altered some things. That is what happened in this movie. They slightly altered some things. And that irritates me because the lore and canon, in my opinion, is very important. Now, the creators of the series didn't even write this movie. Some other people did. And, and I think they did a pretty good job because Christopher Yost, I'm a huge fan of his writing. He's done a lot of X-Men stuff, a lot of Marvel animation stuff. He's really good at what he does. And he's really good at telling like action and stuff when he's not too restrictive. He's worked a lot on Marvel animated movies and stuff, and he does a pretty good job. Now, in terms of the movie, I love the animation. The animation is amazing. Everybody looks aged up. Although Aang still looks a little young in his appearance. Maybe he needs just a little goatee or just something, a little facial hair, something like that, And so the voice acting, which is the most controversial thing in this whole movie because fans are extremely pissed and divided over that, I think these people did a really good job capturing the tone and expressions and the voices of the original cast, just aged up. But not everybody nailed it and stuff. But I think for the most part, they did a really good job and stuff. In terms of character development, here is another problem I have with this movie. Now, it's called The Legend of Aang. That's the title. Therefore, Aang is the main character, as he should be. This is an Aang movie, parallel to that of his villain, a person we've never met. And those two really are parallel from one another. The thing is, so you have to develop the villain and stuff, right? But the thing with the villain is that he's slightly he's a good villain, and you do notice something with him, but then it's completely dropped, and then it's kind of sprinkled in throughout the movie, but not as strong. But he's up to something because everybody knows he is the villain. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, the rest of the main cast are nothing more but supporting characters. You could write Sokka, Katara, Toph, and Zuko completely out this movie, and it won't change a thing. Well, other than the point where everybody dies, and Katara is the one who saved them, which that's more of that cramness. The way she saved everybody from death, it was just a bit of sloppy writing and a little bit of rushness. But I'll get into that a little bit later. But like I said before, all the other cast members are supporting characters, and some barely lift a finger to really do anything. They're just there. Which, okay, it's Aang movie, they're his supporting cast, they are supposed to support him. That is the thing. The problem is, these are no ordinary characters. This is Team Aang. These are his masters, his allies, his friends, his family. I was expecting them to have a much, much, much larger role in this movie other than them just being there to tag along with him. Because of the simple fact the television show wrote them so amazing, so detailed, that to do what this movie did to them is ridiculous. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Digimon movie, like the one that came out in America. Like, you're expecting all these amazing characters to have their moment, and they don't. Or they do have their moment, it's a tiny moment. They're there to be flashy, but that's about it. They have no real story role in this movie, especially Zuko. Not only that, but some of their personalities, while still the same, are not exactly the way they were in the show. They have evolved, and because of that, you don't get all of their characteristics and everything, which is a little shocking and a little odd. But the one person, but even though they don't have all their character traits, they are still evolved. You know what I'm saying? Like, they really are. However, there's one person who has devolved, in my opinion, and that's Aang himself. Aang has not really progressed from that of the original series, in my opinion. Now, he is less of a goofball. You do see some of his goofballness, which they had to keep, because that's the thing with the Legend of Korra. He wasn't silly and he wasn't goofy because he was a middle-aged 40-something-year-old man. So he was very serious in that series. But here, he's not that goofy kid no more. There's a little teeny tiny bit of goofiness to remind you who he is and a little bit laid backness, but that's about it. Now, when I say he has not progressed, he has not really matured. Now, that's part of the story because Aang is desperate in this movie. He is sad. He is lonely. They set it up beautifully where he is just laying out in the grass with Appa, and he's dreaming of his past. He's dreaming of being with the rest of the air nomads and everything back when he was a kid. They even reenact some scenes from the original series with a brand new voice actor for Aang, because the original actor has grown out of that role. Because he was a kid when he voiced that. And the thing is that he misses his old family and everything. They are all dead. He is literally the last Airbender and everything. So when the possibility of creating new Airbenders come up, he doesn't hesitate. He's all in it, to the point where he believes everything the villain says and never tries to question him. And that is really odd, in my opinion. I get his desperation. His desperation became that of his weakness. But Katara, being Katara, she is suspicious and everything, where he is not. And I would have been okay with this if we would have seen Katara question Aang about this and them get into an argument about this. But they don't. She waits until he goes off into this temple, does his thing, and then she questions the villain by herself and everything. And I would have liked to seen that with Aang being there, because, you know, these two, they don't always agree on everything, even though she used to baby him and everything, but, you know, he's not a kid no more. And so I hate that regression from him. Another thing I hate seeing with Aang in this is, like, where is his maturity level in terms of his bending? The dude can't even take on a group of non-benders. He is a full-fledged, fully evolved avatar. And let's not forget, he has raw power from the series, because it was always said he, out of all the avatars before Korra showed up, out of all the avatars, he is the most powerful one because of his raw energy and everything. It is untapped. And that's why he has to control it. So with that all being said, this dude should be able to take on some non-benders. He can't. He's having a hard time, even when he is in the avatar state. And that's just embarrassing right there. Not to mention this new villain who is an evolved airbender and way more advanced than him, to the point where he can fly, and he teaches Aang how to fly. Aang has the hardest time taking him on and everything. And it's just like, even when Aang is in the avatar state, it does absolutely nothing. It's almost like the avatar state is just for him to have like his tattoos and his eyes glow and nothing. It is supposed to give you the knowledge of all avatars, and for the most part give you their knowledge so you can be better in combat. And it can also increase your bending and everything. Yet he can't take on this dude. And that's just kind of odd and weird in my opinion. It's like he's back in like season 1 or something like that when it comes to his bending. Not only that, but the final battle in season 2 and especially season 3 is way better than the final battle here. Don't get me wrong, the action is amazing. Like, this is some choreographed action. The only problem I have with the action, it goes by way too quick. Yes, there are long action scenes, but the camera is constantly moving around and everything's going so fast you can't take everything in. Also, because the camera is always spinning around, it constantly goes around in a circle. So you go from one shot to one person, then the next shot to the next person, as this person's fighting like in a spiral circle and everything, and it just goes way too fast. Plus, they add in CGI and everything to make certain things look better. And it kind of jumbles your eyes a little bit to where you don't know what the heck you're looking at. Once again, the action is amazing. It's just a little jarring at times because you're not quite sure what you're seeing, especially when there's multiple people fighting at the same time. And so it's a little bit confusing and stuff, but I will still say the final battle in the series was a heck of a lot better than this. Sometimes too much is more, and sometimes you need less. You know, kind of like in the new Star Trek series. Every time they have space battle or the ship flying around or something like that, it's just too much. Or they go to an alien planet and it's too much CGI. Sometimes less is better. Now, when it comes to this series, this movie, I should say, it reminds me of a combination of Batman Beyond and Star Trek Picard. Now, what do I mean by that? If you ever watched both those series, the first season, the first thing you ask yourself is, where is the supporting cast? Where is the TNG crew? What have they been up to? Where is, like, you know, Dick Grayson, Robin, Tim Drake? When did Commissioner Gordon and Alfred die? What happened to the villains? And here you ask that too, because where is the supporting cast of the television series at? There's no mention or no sight of any of these characters, and they were big, important characters in the series. You don't hear what happened to them, and you don't see Suki, Azula, Ty Lee, May, or Uncle Iroh. Where the heck are all these characters at? Is Iroh even still alive? Does he still have his tea shop? We know at some point in time he does die because he's in Korra, and right before he died, he went into the spirit world. Or he died and then went into the spirit world. It's never fully been explained. So where is he? And when everybody was in the spirit world, why wasn't he there? If he's supposedly dead. Now Azula, of course, is locked up, but like, where is Zuko's girlfriend's probably wife? Are they even married now? Like, May, where is she? Where's Ty Lee? Like, where the heck is Suki, and why hasn't Sokka mentioned her at all? It's odd that these characters are not mentioned whatsoever. And it's almost like the writers know nothing about this show. Because remember, the screenwriters are from like Marvel and other stuff. So I'm hoping they watched the series before they made this, because they had plenty of years to work on this and everything. But it's just kind of odd. These characters are nowhere to be found. Now, there are tie-ins to the Legend of Korra, because you have to remember, we saw older versions of all these characters, which that does kind of spoil things a little bit. We know all of them are going to be okay because they all live to the point of when Korra was born and everything. Like, this is the scene, this is the picture we saw as them as young adults that we never got to see in Legend of Korra. And fans have always wanted to see this picture, them looking like this, but we never got to see it. Instead, they have now just slightly altered everybody's opinion. As you can see, Aang does not have a beard. And everybody's face and hairstyle is just slightly tweaked and everything, especially that of their clothes. So it would have been nice to get an image of like this, you know what I'm saying? Like that really would have been nice and everything. Because this is an image that's been burnt into people's head for over a decade and a half. But like I said before, this movie doesn't really have stakes because you know how everybody ends up in the future. At some point in time, Aang dies when he's about in his 50s because the stress of being in the avatar state for over 100 years has took a toll on his body. Katara is still alive and a master healer. Zuko has retired from being Fire Lord and gave the crown to his daughter. Sokka died, I think, by an assassin or something like that, but we don't know who killed him. And Toph had two girls and was a police chief, and then just decided, you know, I'm too laid back. I'm gonna let them deal with their own problems, and I'm gonna go live in the forest and search for enlightenment and be a grumpy old woman. And so we know how things with them are going to end, and so this movie kind of has to get to that point, and it does for a couple of them. But also, once again, this does tie into Korra. Republic City has already been formed in this movie. I would have loved to see Zuko and Aang form this and why they formed this. However, this is where nitpicks come in and canon is broke. It wasn't even really them who had this idea, it was Katara now all of a sudden. It has always been stated in the Legend of Korra, it was Aang and it was Zuko who wanted to bring the four nations together, not Katara. Now all of a sudden it's Katara's vision and everything. And this is something she really wanted because she's an ambassador and everything there. When the heck did this ever happen? So this is now broken canon. Not only that, but it would have made more sense for Zuko and Aang to build Republic City, bring the four nations together because of one, what happened in the war, even though technically Iroh said the four nations need to stay separate. And I always thought that was weird in Legend of Korra, they brought them all together. But when you find out who this villain is and how he hates the other nations because the Earth Kingdom started slaughtering his people and he doesn't trust the other nations, and he tells Aang plain and simple, why do you hang out with Zuko when Zuko entire nation murdered the air nomads and everything? And Aang has to tell him why. And so this would have been a perfect reason for Aang and Zuko to be like, you know what, we can't be separated all the time. This dude hated all the other nations. Why don't we bring them all together? We don't get this because that's not written in the movie. And apparently these two have already formed Republic City. And so there's nothing really happening in Republic City. It's just there to tie it in to the Legend of Korra. Also, the way Aang talks to like all the avatars is now different. It's more similar to that of the Legend of Korra. In the past, the dude can just meditate and call on whoever he wants to, but now he actually has to go into the spirit world and start going one by one, trying to find out which avatar he needs to talk to, because there's one very important one he needs to talk to in this movie, and he can't find her. Apparently, she is lost and everything. And her being lost makes absolutely no sense, but she's lost. And also the spirits, we get to see a spirit in two of them actually. And so this kind of ties into the Legend of Korra, because this one spirit is all like, ooh, a human. I haven't seen a human in like so many years and blah, blah, blah. And it's because of the Legend of Korra. Also, the creation of airbenders. In the Legend of Korra, we get to see the formation of the new airbenders because of the harmonic conversion and everything. Here is now because of a spirit staff, a MacGuffin that plays a huge role in the movie and everything. And of course, they can't keep these new airbenders because of the simple fact it will break canon with Legend of Korra, so they have to get rid of them by the end of the movie. Speaking of which, these new airbenders are the new villains. They don't start off as airbenders, they start off as deniers. Deniers are non-benders who really hate people who bend, and they hate the avatar. Does that sound familiar to you? They sound like Amon and his equalists and everything. And they just so happen, a couple of them just so happen to wear a mask very similar to that of Amon. Why not just call them the equalists and everything? Why call them the deniers? I guess they are the catalyst of the equalists and everything, which is another tie-in to that of Legend of Korra. The problem, but of course, they need somebody for Team Avatar to fight. Now, if Team Avatar were to have a personal gripe with all of with one of them, that would have been fine for the main battle. But there's no such thing. I want to make one correction with this group of villains. So I recorded this before, but it's kind of hard for me to edit because of the simple fact my computer is completely screwed up and it has no audio right now. So I'm just gonna have to wing it and do the best. That's why some of my videos have been sounding the way they have lately. So the Deny, this group is very underdeveloped. They show up at the temple and like Aang asks, what's your deal? And they're all like, they're tired of benders having all the power. And so they call themselves the Deny. So they're looking for this statue that has a map so they can find its staff and then give themselves like airbending. So I do want to make that correction. I think in my video at some point I do say that like they hate benders and this and that. They do hate benders, but they want to be benders themselves. They are very, very, very underwritten in everything. And so like this is like a huge problem I have with the movie, because it's kind of like they are part of the central villain group, but it's like we don't really know who they are. It's kind of iffy on their motive and everything. I had to like watch it a second time just to like figure it out, because I knew they hate benders and everything, and I didn't understand why they wanted like to become benders themselves, but it's because benders got all the power and then they don't. that. So at some point in my video, you might hear me say like, why did they join up with this dude if like, you know, they hate benders, blah, 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 blah. This is why. Still is very annoying because it's kind of like they should have been the main central villain and everything, and they should have been developed a heck of a lot more. And still, once again, I don't understand how they get their bend, like how they are able to bend once they do get their bending, because you have to be taught, you know, the movements and this and that. And just like in Korra season 3, they just seem to know. Now let's get into the big controversy that's caused so much anger and discord on the internet. And no, I'm not talking about the leak. I'm talking about the voice cast. The voice cast that's caused so many people to cry, moan, and complain, and so many crybaby white boys to scream that this movie is, and I'm not even joking, woke. Yes, there's some on the internet that's saying this movie is woke because they changed the voice cast. Okay, here's the thing, right? This is the original voice cast. Everybody in this show was white except for like maybe 4 Asian people. Now, the world of Avatar is that of Asian people, Chinese, Japanese, also Indian people, like Asian Indian people, and also I think it's called Insunt or something like that. I can't remember how to pronounce it. Like Eskimo people or like Native American people, indigenous people and stuff. That is the only races in the world of Avatar. But because Hollywood's Hollywood, they cast a bunch of white people for these roles. And yes, they did an amazing job. And yes, their voices are iconic. And yes, I miss their voices. And yes, there are times I kind of wish they was in the movie voicing it. But at that same time, it's just not appropriate and everything. So when this movie was being created, it was during the time of woke Hollywood and everything. And so they decided to change up the voice cast to match the races of the characters, as they should have done like 20 years ago and everything. But of course, people hate wokeness. They hate cultural appropriation and everything. They just want white people to flourish on everything because that's what they're used to and everything. And so because of that, many people are upset. I personally really enjoy the new voice cast and everything. They did a splendid job and they really matched the tone and likeness of the original voice cast, but with a more mature kind of tone in their voice. All except for the new Zuko actor. He just didn't do it and everything. He just didn't do it. And I'll get into those voice actors really quick. And yes, I'm going to butcher their names. But I want to address something that doesn't make no sense. There are 2 Asian characters that were recast for this movie, and it makes no sense because of the simple fact that their original voice actors were already Asian. So why in the world are you going to recast them? One I didn't even notice was like the cabbage dude and everything, the cabbage merchant. This dude's voice was so identical to the original, I had no idea they changed it. James C. or Psy, or Sia, I don't know how to say his last name. He was the original voice actor from the television series, but Kim Jong-un took over, or John or something like that, took over his role for the movie. If they're trying to be culturally appropriate, why recast one Asian with another Asian? Makes no sense. Then there's Monk Gyatso. I don't know why they recast Monk Gyatso, because of the simple fact, like the original voice actor is Asian and now the new one is Asian. That don't make no sense. Another one that doesn't make no sense, and I completely forgot about the third one, is 3, not 2, is Zuko. Now, the original voice actor is Dante Bosco, who has a very distinct voice. But they recast him with Steven Yeun, Yuan. I'm butchering names, from The Walking Dead. Also, Steven was the voice of the original Avatar from Legend of Korra. I don't understand why they're gonna recast him. Maybe because Dante's voice is too young sounding, so they're all like, Zuko's just gonna sound like a teenager. So I guess that's probably why. Okay, so we have Eric Nam, who plays Aang, and he does a great job. He has a very cool, soothing type voice. It's not too angry, it's not too soft, it's not too lighthearted. It really has like a really heroic but young, youthful like vibe to it. And he is perfect for an adult Aang. When it comes to the Legend of Korra and the older actors who voiced the original characters, I was never feeling their voice, and I mean never feeling their voice. They just always sound wrong and everything. But Aang, he's on an emotional journey. He really misses his people. He wants to restore the air nomads, the airbenders and stuff to the world. And he's not thinking clearly and stuff. And like I said before, I'm really disappointed with how he has regressed. Yeah, other avatars do have a bit of a hard time taking on, like, people, even while in the avatar state. But even in the avatar state, they can still whoop some behind. The fact that this dude barely could do that, he could keep up, but he couldn't defeat nobody. That was like, who is this guy? Like, what happened to him? Now, something interesting happens to him at the very end of the movie, and it's very rushed, and it's like resolved at the end of the movie. That should have left off on a huge cliff. No, actually, when there's a group of airbenders that like show up, that should have ended on a cliffhanger. Jessica Madden, she plays Katara, and her voice sounds very kind of similar to Mae Whitman's, but in a more mature kind of way. She is still caring, she is still motherly, she still gives good speeches and everything. This was a great choice, and she knows how to get like pissed off, especially when you like disrespect her because either she's female or she's water tribe. Because Toga disrespected her because she's water tribe and everything. And so she's an ambassador to that of Republic City. And her and Aang are a couple, but I don't think they're married just yet. And so she kind of gets sidelined as well, just like everybody else. But the only difference is she's able to figure out that something's up with Toga, and she confronts him and everything. They fight, and then the rest of the Team Avatar help her out while Aang is doing something else. Also, she gets really pissed at Aang because Toga and Aang went to go like clear a path for the skyship so they can go to this lost like temple and everything. But they have to airbend like tornadoes and stuff. Toga tells Aang when Aang wants to go back and help his friends because they're being attacked by like the bad guys and everything, that, oh, they can handle themselves, blah, 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 blah. We have to clear this path. And she gets pissed because she's all like, yo, we needed your help and you were nowhere to be like found. But, like I said before, she is the one who confronted Toga. But her and the rest of the team end up dying. And I'm not quite sure how the world they die. He just hit them in the chest with wind. Now, I read many years ago, if you go skydiving or something like that, and you just keep plummeting from a really high distance, then all that wind can hit you in the chest or hit you in like the lung area and pretty much collapse your lungs and kill you. That was a long time when I read that. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. I'm not 100% sure. But that seems to be what he did to everybody, including Aang. It is revealed that Katara actually saved everybody and brought everybody from the dead, just like she did Aang at the end of season 2. When they were all in the spirit world, apparently when they all died and she hit the water, the spirit world amplified her healing abilities because she's a waterbender and stuff. And so it automatically resurrected her because it kind of amplified her power. Then she was able to save everybody else. This makes sense because remember when she burnt herself in '01, season 1, like she put her hands in water to kind of cool off her burning hands, and all of a sudden she started to heal herself without even knowing it and everything. And the fact that they made her this level of power and healing while in the spirit world, remember that, because remember when she's older and still alive, she's the world's greatest healer and everything, but she couldn't save Korra from the poison. Ain't that special? But then it's later on revealed at the end of the movie, it was, I think, her idea to create Republic City and combine all the nations and everything. So she caused all that mess in the Korra season. When it's supposed to be Aang and Zuko who was supposed to cause all that mess. Roman Zaragoza, he plays Sokka. Now, I knew he was going to do a great job because of the simple fact he plays, what's his name? Zaz in Ghost. Ghost is a CBS show where he plays a Native American. And he's pretty funny in that, but he kind of has kind of like witty, dry kind of humor. Kinda. But man, he really brought out the Sokka. Like he does the crazy expressions, the overhypeness and everything. His voice needs to be a little bit more high pitched. But if it was, then he would have sounded young, so they didn't want to go that route. But this dude is a perfect freaking Sokka, man. Like he really nailed it and stuff. And the thing about Sokka is like he is different. He doesn't talk about eating food a lot, but we do see him with food in his hand once, only for it to get washed away by water. So that's the only reference to him in food. Also, he's not a warrior no more. I guess he feels he doesn't have to prove himself because he did it when he was a teenager. So now he spends all his time tinkering and creating inventions similar to that of the Mechanist. That's a really interesting progression and everything because this dude was all about being a warrior. And not only, so now he's like, the engineer, the inventor and everything. But he's no longer the strategist and everything. Remember, he used to always plan an attack, war plans and stuff like that, and figure things out because of his intuition. We don't see that at all. So he kind of regressed in that sense. But he has improved leaps and bounds in his creativity to create things because he helps out in the final battle when Katara is out of water, and he created a flying bike and everything that has explosives and water jugs and stuff like that in case people need it to re-amplify. Now, his tinkering skills would have came in handy when the skyship needed repairs and they're falling out the sky, but instead now it's Zuko who fixed that, which is kind of weird. And not only that, but Sokka acts like he doesn't even know how to fly. Well, he doesn't know how to fly a Fire Nation like warship because he said he always crashes them. So they made him really smart in one regard and kind of dumb in the other. Stephen Ewan, the dude from The Walking Dead, plays Fire Lord Zuko. His voice does not sound like Zuko whatsoever. Not only that, but his character is kind of just there. Take him out, you don't need him and everything. He doesn't bring nothing to the movie other than his warship and everything. Not only that, But he is so calm and everything. He doesn't get angry and shout not once. He does get kind of irritated when people, I think, don't want to help out with something, but that's about it. But he doesn't have like a temper tantrum. He's just so mellow now. And I guess you can kind of look at that as him evolving from that angry person he used to be. But he didn't let out not one outburst. And that's kind of weird. Like, everybody's allowed to get a little angry, you know what I'm saying? But the fact that he is so calm is just so bizarre and everything. And it's just kind of weird 'cause he doesn't feel like Zuko. And he really feels like a background character. But also, Donnie Quinn, I think that's how you say her name. She plays the new Toph and everything. Now, she does a really good job playing Toph. She still talks like holds her head up high in the air and talking about she's the world greatest bender or earth bender or metal bender of all time and stuff like that. Like she still does that, and that's really great, because that was a highlight of the original series. It's weird seeing her taller. It's always been weird seeing her taller. But they made her super muscular looking now. Like, she's a little bit more robust. And towards the end, she has a lot of muscle. But like the actress does a really good job. Now the actress, she was on Rugrats as Kimmy and everything. She came out of retirement just to do this role. And also remember, she is blind in real life. So that's kind of neat that they got a blind actress to play a blind character in the cartoon. Now, as for Tough, just like Zuko, she's just literally there. She doesn't add nothing to the movie. She's basically just a background character. Now, we see her teaching people how to metal bend, but she hasn't formed her police unit yet. Not only that, but she still has the same exact hairstyle as always, even when she's older and stuff. But here's the thing. She's not mean, she's not rude, she's not lazy, and she's not cranky. They completely softened her up to where she is now comedic relief, which is weird and bizarre. Yeah, once in a while she'll make fun of somebody in the original series, but not this much. The fact that she doesn't get angry at all is just bizarre and everything. Like, it's really just bizarre. But this is Toph we're talking about. She's really tough. Now, she still knows how to throw down. You know what I'm saying? And it's cool towards the end of the movie. She makes a suit of armor. Not complete suit, but like a half suit with this weird metal visor over her face. I wish she didn't have the visor on because towards the end, like her, Zuko, and Katara, their hair all get messed up and their hair is like really long and flowing, and we finally get to see Toph's long hair flowing in like the wind and everything. Because remember, the only time we ever saw her hair when it was in a big bush and everything. Now, here's the craziest thing, right? When the leaks happened, everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people lost their mind because they found out that Toph is straight. To those people, my question is, have you ever watched the original series or the Korra series? In the original series, she was never bisexual. She was never a lesbian, and she had a crush on Sokka. Then, in the Korra series, it's revealed she fell in love with a man and had 2 kids. Never once was she ever a lesbian or nothing. I don't know where people got this from. I guess because she's a tomboy, they automatically assume she must be a lesbian or something like that, which is something I find so strange and bizarre. It was the same thing kind of with Velma in Scooby-Doo. Because she's a nerd and she looks the way she does, people assume she was a lesbian for decades until the new creators decided, all right, let's just make her a lesbian and everything. But just because a person's a nerd, or just because a person is goth, or just because a person is a tomboy doesn't automatically make them a lesbian and stuff. Dave Bautista plays Toga. And I'm gonna say this right from the get-go. He cannot act. I've said that before. Wrestlers just can't act. The Rock, John Cena, Becky Lynch, Trish Stratus, Gail Kim, etc., 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 and add Batista to the long line of wrestlers who try to act. They simply just can't. His voice, at first, it sounded okay. I'm like, all right, cool. But I noticed something. He keeps the same exact tone all throughout the movie, and he only changes it up towards the end when he bulks up and gets really angry and has to shout. But he keeps the same temperament and tone in his voice, and that's very annoying. Like I kind of get it. All right, fine. He's an airbender, but here's the thing. Even Aang in the original series and even in this new one has emotion in his voice. This dude has no emotion in his voice. He's like one note. He should have never been cast for this movie. And to think he is gonna play the villain in the new live action Highlander reboot, the Coogan, I think his name is. I can't remember his name. Or Kurgan, the Kurgan. And I'm just like, no, please, Lord Jesus, no. I've never liked Batista. Like when he was Drax the Destroyer, I hated him in that role. He is not going to be able to do a good job in Highlander. He's not, because he's not funny. He's not menacing. He is menacing when he wrestles. That's about it. But I knew he was bad because his mic skills in wrestling were bad. But not only that, but like, he doesn't know how to convey emotion through his voice or through like really his like facial expressions other than looking stupid. He's going to do a horrible job. And Andrea Romano was not the voice director for this. A new lady named Jenny something. See if I can look her up real fast. Oh God, I don't feel like. I saw her name just a few minutes ago. It's Jenny something. Casting. According to the film, okay, Jenny Ju. And so, yeah, she should have never cast that dude as like Toga. But Toga is very similar to Aang. He was frozen in ice. He's an airbender. He loves his people. You know, his people were slaughtered. And he just wants to restore his people back to the world. He is Aang's equal, but also Aang's opposite at the same time. Similar to what happened in Korra when we had an evil avatar that was created. Funny enough, the evil avatar that was created for Korra, you know, that did not happen naturally and everything. And neither did Toga's airbending. He didn't start off as an airbender. He was just a normal human, and the powers were given to him by the spirits because of like the avatar from 5,000 years ago. They take so much inspiration from Korra, it's like weird. But Korra pretty much did everything they could, so they're running out of ideas. Which makes me wonder what the heck Seven Havens is going to be about. But the thing about him is that when he sees Toph and wakes up for the first time, and he sees everybody, he sees her earthbending, and he is furious and doesn't like her because of that fact. And so Aang tells her, oh no, she's like one of us and blah, 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 and she's my friend. But then Aang never questioned, hey, why do you really hate Toph and everything? Earthbender. I think he might have, but I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure he didn't. And so we find out early back 5,000 years ago, the airbenders, like a lot of them were slaughtered, the ones that were created by the earthbenders and stuff. And because that, he has a hatred of all other benders and stuff. Frida Pinto, she plays Avatar So now, I think that's how you say her name. She is this ancient avatar from 5,000 years ago who apparently just went missing. Aang can't even find her in the avatar state. How in the world did she go missing? When she dies, she's supposed to reincarnate and go into the spirit world. Anyway, she has a very unique and interesting story. Apparently, back in the olden days, airbenders, I believe they said, used to keep balance throughout the world. Now, remember, this was 5,000 years ago, not 10,000 with the original first Avatar. But this is 5,000 years ago. So I guess airbenders decided to keep the peace throughout all the nations and stuff like that. For whatever reason, she wanted to create more airbenders. So she went to the lion turtles with this staff and infused it with the powers of the spirit world. From there, she was able to make airbenders, and Toga was her first disciple. But of course, the Earth Kingdom people destroyed them, and that made him go pissy and everything. And so when she said when he touched the staff, he got corrupted. But the question is, and this is a big plot hole, whoever touches the staff becomes corrupted. Aang became corrupted with his emotion, and then Toga with his emotion. Yet she did not. Why didn't she lose control? And why wasn't she corrupted? Was it because those two were angry, or those two had selfish reasons? But then her reason was selfish for creating like a bunch of airbenders. That is not explained, and it's just sloppy writing. But, after defeating Toga and everything and trapping him in ice through the Avatar state and everything, it depleted her and she died. Okay, so Tim Hedrick and Christopher Yost, they are the screenwriters for this movie. Now, Christopher Yost, I am a fan of. He's kind of like the Bruce Timm of Marvel animation. Lauren Montgomery, she is the one who directed it. She is an amazing director. I've seen so much of her animated work from like those DC animated movies from over 20 years ago and stuff. She is really phenomenal. And of course, it's a story and also created by that of the original creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I still can't say their name. Brian Konietzko and Michael Dante Di Martino. And so this all came about in them creating Avatar Studios because they were going to work on the live action Netflix show. But creative differences, and they left, went to Paramount, created Avatar Studios, and then for like over 5 years or so, we ain't hear nothing from them. And they said they're gonna come up with like tons of like shows and animated movies and comics and this and that. The comics they did, I have not read them. I do know some things that happen in the comics because in order to research for Korra, I'm like, how did this happen? And why did this happen? And why are there bison and stuff? So I figured some things out from the comic. And also what happened to Azula and, Zuko's mom and, stuff like that. And so like, what is it? So Seventh Haven, whenever that's gonna come out, that's their newest show with an earthbender, supposed to be twins and everything, and she's missing a leg. Don't know what's gonna happen, but everybody is curious. Okay, so the leak. So originally, this movie was supposed to come out theatrically, but the new owner of Paramount, Skydance, owned by David Ellison, decided to put this on streaming. Basically, Paramount is in debt. They are bleeding money badly. And they want people to subscribe to Paramount Plus because a lot of people have just cut off their subscription and everything. Also, people don't like Skydance mainly because of like the whole Melissa Barrera screen firing thing. Also, a lot of people So, like, also, a lot of people don't like David Ellison because he does whatever the current administration wants him to do, firing Steve Colbert, changing CBS. And so, like, a lot of people have just been fed up with this dude and they don't want to subscribe and everything. So then all of a sudden, leak images and video clips started to come out. Mainly that of like who Dave Bautista's gonna play and some of Team Avatar. Then within like a day or two, the entire movie leaked online to where Paramount launched an investigation. Boy, I ain't seen nothing like this happen since what was that X-Men Wolverine Origins and stuff. So apparently the leaker was a 26-year-old man from Singapore. And like he was arrested for it because he gained unauthorized access to like the server, I guess over at Paramount, and just leaked parts of it online. Originally, he posted something online saying like Nickelodeon shared him like the movie, and he got the like seeing early access of it, and then next thing you know, like clips of it got leaked online, then the full movie got leaked online. Then it was later revealed that he's all like he didn't think leaking like clips of it would be such a big deal because like they pulled it from movies and stuff, the movie theater and stuff. So then, of course, Paramount did an investigation and dude got arrested and everything. And the response online was like pretty much all the same. Some people talking about this is what he deserves because he robbed us of this movie on streaming. And I'm all like, who are these people saying that? Like, come on now. Like people are pissed at him for leaking the movie and millions have watched the movie. I bet these are paid accounts or bots or something like that because people don't generally talk like this. Like normally when something gets leaked, people are happy. So the movie starts off and we're at one of the air temples and everything. And we get a flashback of Aang as a little kid playing with his friends. And of course, it's a different voice actor playing young Aang. And so, then all of a sudden the dream starts to turn dark and a little nightmarish. But we see monk Gyatso and everything. And the voice actor sounds nothing like the original. They should have found somebody whose voice sounded similar. But anyways, eventually he wakes up with Appa and Momo and stuff. And they're on like a little bit of like kind of like an errand almost, or like a little task. Basically they're trying to restore the temple back to its glory days. Why did it take this many decades? I have no idea. You think that would have been one of the first things he would have done. But he's putting all these tiny statues there and he's just having a happy, good old time restoring, like, his former home and everything. And there he reveals that he has a statue of Avatar. And what did I say her name was? Sonnen. And it's something supposed to be really special about this one because it's really ancient, like it's an antique. Then all of a sudden he senses like the bad guys show up, the group of people who act like the equalists and everything. And they are non-benders and they do not like him, but they're searching for something. So Aang is doing his typical nice guy thing. Oh, I don't want to hurt you. Don't mess up my temple. These are antiques, blah, 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 blah. Well, they start wrecking stuff and boy, here comes the Avatar state and everything. So they're fighting, and of course, he's having a hard time defeating them. But they finally find the statue that they're looking for, and they break it, and there's a map inside. Next thing you know, they flee, but the temple is starting to fall apart. So he goes into the Avatar state, and he basically lifts up a huge pillar and everything. It is so cool to see him master the Avatar state. and know how to use it. However, he does what he did back in the original series. He stays in the avatar state as he's fighting. You're not supposed to do that, because if you die while being in the avatar state, then the cycle gets broken. You're supposed to click it on and click it off. Now, this is something they did in Korra as well. And I think the reason why they do this is only because fans love seeing people in the avatar state, or avatars in the avatar state, full time and everything. So now he has to figure out what these people want and everything. So he heads to Republic City. There we see Ambassador Katara, and she's giving a big speech. Oh, also we get the intro, like a new little intro about like all the like 4 nations, and each character like voices their nation's like monologue speech and everything. So that's pretty neat. And so like she meets up with Aang, he tells her what happened, and he has to figure out like what these people want and everything. But she has to heal him up because he got banged up pretty well and everything. So he goes into the avatar state, and he starts searching for like this lost avatar, and he starts asking everybody around like Roku and this and that, but nobody knows who the heck she is, until he finally finds a earthbending like avatar Zai, and he's played by Ki Hu Quan. I cannot say the dude name. I can't pronounce these people's names. But you know who this dude is and everything. He's like this really quirky and eccentric little teeny tiny dwarf of like an avatar who really hates when people wear sandals and everything. And so he tells Aang, she's the lost one and everything, and nobody knows what the heck happened to her and stuff. But I think he tells Aang like her last whereabouts. So he's getting the old gang back together. So he leaves Katara a letter for her to meet him at this place. And doesn't even tell like her he's going. He just gives her kind of like that Dear John kind of letter to meet up. But then he sends messenger hawks to like the other nations to get his friends. And each messenger hawk is now a different color, coordinating to the color of the nation, which is weird because they all used to be red from the Fire Nation. When he sends Zuko his, it's so funny because he has somebody, Zuko has like, one of his guards to read it out loud. And Aang knows that. So he totally embarrasses Zuko and everything. But anyway, Aang goes to kind of like the Arctic or something like that. And he loses his hat, and he almost dies falling off like a cliff and everything like that, until he sees somebody trapped in the avatar state, frozen in ice. He thinks it's that avatar, so he frees this person. But the the wind and everything like that is just too much, and they plummet as he's trying to save now this man who apparently is not the avatar. And the wind is a bit too much for him, so he uses the fire rocket thing where you shoot like flames from like your fist and your feet. We've never seen Aang do that, so that's really awesome. But then it's still too much for him, and the Toga wakes up, saves Aang, and then here comes his friends, convenient, and they save him. Toga wakes up. Toph has a crush on him because she's straight. He's pissed at Toph and everything, and explains who he is and what all happened, but he doesn't tell the full truth. Now here's the thing about Toga. If you was watching this without knowing he's going to be the villain, you would think he's a nice guy who just doesn't like earthbenders for whatever reason. But the internet been spoiled this months ago, talking about Batista is playing the villain and everything. And so going into this, I knew he was a villain. But if you was to watch this, you wouldn't know he's a villain. Him and Aang bond like never before. Because They're both airbenders, you know, they've both been trapped in ice. They're very similar, this and that. And he teaches Aang how to fly by bending the wind underneath you and stuff. Now, remember in Korra, this was an ancient technique that a monk airbender like learnt and everything. And the secret was hidden away with him. So most likely this happened over 5,000 years ago. And these people know the technique from this older airbending tribe and everything. And, you know, so some of the others, like Sokka, is kind of wondering, you know, I forget what Sokka's wondering, something about like, I think he might not trust him or something like that. I don't know, I can't remember. But anyways, as they're going to find the staff, because they have to go to this ancient air temple in like, you know, the spirit world. And it's really hard to get there. And here come the bad guys again, and they're just like, you know, shooting arrows on whatever they can to try to kill, like, you know, Team Avatar. And so this is when, like, you know, the Team Avatar is trying to fight them or whatever they can, and Aang and Toga trying to fight tornadoes and everything. The ship gets, like, busted. They have to, like, fix it and stuff like that. And so they make their way through, and this is when, like I said before, Aang and Katara had a little spat because he didn't go back to rescue them and stuff. And, you know, Toga and Aang, like I said before, they talk, oh, hey, you know, why do you like Zuko? His people destroyed your people, blah, 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 and stuff like that. But Aang goes and tries to find his staff. The staff that can, like, you know, create, like, airbenders and stuff, right? So he finds it, and he's doing his avatar thing to unlock it and everything. How he knows how to unlock it, heck if I know. And so it's never explained. So this is when Katara starts to fight Toga and everything. So all the Team Avatar is fighting this dude, and they cannot defeat him. He is just that strong. And and then off screen, he ended up killing them, but we don't know this just yet. And neither does Aang. When he gets the staff and everything, you know, this is when we find out his plan. He wants to create a bunch of airbenders, blah, 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 blah. Aang wants to stop him. They fight, and then he kills Aang. So at some point in time, Aang finally talks to that ancient airbender avatar that went missing and everything. And she explains, you know, everything about how like the airbenders used to keep peace. And then she created like a bunch of like, you know, airbenders, and Toga just went bloodthirsty because of the simple fact the staff corrupted him, and because the earthbenders killed some of his people, then later all of his people. And so she had to fight him off and like contain him in ice through the avatar state and hope nobody will find him. Then she hid the staff and made it so only an avatar can unleash it. And look what Aang just did. And everything. Now, one interesting thing about this avatar is that she's Indian looking, like Asian Indian and stuff. This is fascinating because like air nomads are supposed to be based off of Tibetan monks. But remember, in the Earth Kingdom, we found that one guru who was very dark skinned. In the original series, he was the only really dark skinned person. And he kind of just like people wondering where did he come from and stuff, you know? And he looked, had like a very much like Palestine, what is it? Pakistani look to him and stuff. Very much an Indian look. And then, of course, in the Korra show, they started adding more darker skinned people from the Earth Kingdom that later became airbenders and stuff. And then now in Seventh Haven, they also have a dark skin like Avatar. So when they was creating this show back in the day and basing it on like, you know, Eskimo and like Native American and Asian culture, they kind of left out Indian culture a little bit and stuff. And of course, in like India's over in Asia and stuff. Like a lot of Pakistani people are technically Asian, but they're also Indian. And so that's really fascinating that they made her this way, and I like that. Not to mention the end credit music is more Indian sounding and stuff. And so they have to get out the spirit world and everything. But first he has to find his team. So they explain how they survived because they actually all died and everything. Katara talks about like how this like land in the water has like special properties and it enhanced her healing abilities. Because remember in Korra, she is the greatest healer of all time, even though she couldn't save Korra from that poison and everything and restore whatever she had to restore. And so they're trying to figure out a way of how they're going to get back because Appa, for whatever reason, just decided to work with like the evil dude and their skyship is busted. So Aang calls in a favor from the water spirit. And so that is how he's able to open a portal and then get back to where they need to get to. And then I think that Taika Waititi character also helped him as well. Toga has to put the staff in the air temple that's in I think like the spirit world, but he's trying to bring the temple from the spirit world into the real world and crash it on Republic City. Why? Because he hates the other nations and this is a place where all the other nations are combined. So Aang has to try to stop him while Team Avatar has to stop the bad people. Now, one of them is a girl who has the red mask and the bow and arrows. When she's given powers, yes, she has airbending, but she also now is a firebender. How? The staff only makes airbenders, not firebenders. This is a huge plot hole in everything. Now, there is one of the bad people who is sympathetic and wants to kind of help out Aang because Aang saved her life when she tried to kill him early on in the movie. But the firebender, airbender lady, to my, oh, remember that, you lost your family and lost our people because the Avatar hid for 100 years and blah, 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 and stuff like that. And so, but eventually she does help out Katara and everything. So there's just a huge battle, left and right, left and right. But Toga has now hulked up and has become nuts in the head because the staff has corrupted him. Aang eventually gets the staff from him, but Aang turns evil himself. This should have been a trilogy. The first movie should have been everything leading up to the Team Avatar dying. Then the second movie, them trying to prevent Toga making new airbenders and stuff. To eventually he makes them. And then at the end, Aang should have turned evil. And in the third movie, they should have had Team Avatar fight off evil Aang and everything. I would have done that, but I'm not a writer on this movie. And so Aang is just furious. Now, one thing that pisses me off is his Avatar voice. In the original series, it was demonic. It was awesome. Here is his normal voice that just has a little echo, similar to that of Korra. And I don't like that. I like that scary Avatar voice. But this dude is enraged. He wants to destroy. He just wants to rip Toga to shreds. And it's actually a memory of Monk Gyatso who calms him down. And that's all it took. It just calmed him down. So he breaks the staff, and wouldn't you know it, everybody who had airbending powers because of the staff has now lost them. And not only that, But Toga is now disappearing. Like, I guess all that spiritual energy that was in him is just killing his body. But why doesn't it kill Aang? Maybe because he's the Avatar, and I don't know. Like, it prevents him from dying or whatever. But Toga is just like disappearing. Him and Aang hold hands. They say like an earthbending quote. Oh, I guess he's sympathetic now. Redemption. And he just dies. Now, one thing that pisses me off throughout this whole movie, Aang never tried to energy bend Toga. Not even once. I was just waiting for that to happen, but it never did. So after that, they head back to Republic City and talk about, oh, Qatar, we finally built, your dream, blah, 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 whatever. And all the nations are together. I thought Aang and Zuko was supposed to do that. But then the movie ended in a very unexpected way. Remember that one bad girl that turned good? Aang has decided to make acolytes and everything for the air nomads and stuff, because they just built the very first air temple in Republic City. I'm assuming this is Tenzin's temple or whatever, or maybe not, who knows. So him and everybody, the acolytes and Team Avatar, they're flying on Appa and everything. And oh my God, wouldn't you know it? Guess what they found? When they went back to that Avatar lady's temple that's hidden, they found a bunch of sky bison and everything, explaining how they're sky bison in the Legend of Korra. But here's the problem. When I was researching this on the Korra show, because a lot of people are wondering, well, how the heck are sky bison still around if Appa was the only one? Who did he mate with and everything? Well, it is said in the comic that Aang, and Aang alone, found a herd of bison in a faraway land. It didn't say nothing about no acolytes or no Team Avatar. So this, once again, has broken canon. And the movie ends and everything. So all in all, like I said before, this movie is fun, it's thrilling, it's awesome, it's amazing. There's lots of action and everything. However, this movie is not perfect. It's missing that good old character growth and development that the series had. It's missing a lot of its heart, and it's missing a life lesson to be taught. Aang didn't learn nothing in this movie. Nothing at all. Normally when Aang messes up or when Aang has to learn to defeat somebody, he learns a valuable lesson. But when he had the staff and he was corrupt, he was taught nothing. He didn't resolve his problem. It was just a memory of Monk Gyatso, and that's all it took. And it's just kind of like he screwed up in this movie. He believed a complete stranger. He tried to create his own avatar. No, he tried to create his own airbenders and stuff, and didn't let nature just do it on his own, or the spirits do it on his own. And he foolishly just went to an unknown location because of this stranger and unleashed almost Armageddon and everything with the staff. And it's just he learned nothing, not a thing. And his supporting cast are just there. They're just there to fill the space of a battle and everything. The villains, while strong in battle, they're weak in character development. How the world did they learn how to airbend? It doesn't come naturally and everything. It took Korra an entire season to do that. Also, they really tried too hard to tie things into the Korra series. Oh, I forgot to mention, we actually, when they was in the spirit world, Aang and Sokka. So Aang and Sokka turned back to their young selves. Toph turned into a baby, but Zuko and Katara turned old the same way they did in the Korra series. We can't see an old Aang or Sokka because they died before they got really old. And of course, Toph being a baby and biting people is just funny. And so it's just kind of one of those things where it's just like, this is a good movie, right? But this should have been like the best thing since sliced bread. The creators of this movie have lightning doesn't strike twice, and that's been apparent in so many Avatar projects, whether they work on them or not. The first live action movie, the live action television show, of course, they had nothing to do with that. But the Korra series that has divided the fandom. The Korra series, still to this day, is not a great series. It just feels like it wasn't planned out that well and everything. And here, the screenwriters feel like they just saw a few episodes and like, okay, we like this, we like that, that happened, but didn't really watch the entire series and stuff. Like I said before, Christopher Yost does a good job, but he doesn't know how to tell that deep, rich storytelling that the original creators can and stuff. And even the original creators can't retell that rich, deep storytelling because the Korra series is so like divided, you know. But nevertheless, this is a really good movie and everything. I just wish it was great like the original. Nothing will ever top the original series. Apparently, that will never happen.